Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Low Carb Lifestyle Podcast. Today, I'm here with Lauren. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast, Lauren.
Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. I'm so looking forward to this chat. There's going to be so many people that are really going to resonate with what you talk about. But do you want to just start by sharing with everyone a little bit about what you do?
Right. So I consider myself a behavioral nutritionist. It was a very long journey to get here. I studied biology in undergraduate and became really interested in nutrition only because of my personal struggles with diet and nutrition. I was a triathlete. I was not lean. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't lean when I was working out 6 hours a day. And through my education, nutritional biochemistry, and a lot of the nutritional science classes, I really figured out what was going on. So I've been low carb for about 20 years. Even before low carb was low carb, I really was on a low glycemic index diet because at that time, that's all that was really there. So for 20 years, I've eaten very low carb or not quite to the ketogenic space. So I worked as a scientist at UCSD. I did a postdoc at UCSD, University of California, San Diego. And I would always do consulting on the side for my friends. And I thought to myself, it's time for me to help the people that need help. I can publish papers in scientific journals and I don't know who's reading them, but the people that really need me cannot hear me and cannot see the passion I have for this lifestyle. So I started my own clinical practice about 2 years ago, started a low carb practice, but soon came only into the ketogenic space just because I started a ketogenic lifestyle and I became so passionate about it. And I really want other people to be able to share the way I feel, the way I function, my quality of life. And I want to share that with as many people as I can.
That's awesome. So a couple of things I really would love you to share what you've seen change over these 20 years that you've been in the space, because I think, obviously it's taken off. I've only been in the space like 8 years. I'm a baby now compared to you. So I'd love your perspective on that. But I'd also love you to share, really people get kind of confused as to the difference between what low carb is and then what keto is. And I think there's a lot of keto confusion around what it actually is. So I'd love your perspective on that as well.
Right. So being in the low carb space, I mean, I ate low carb, but there really were no guidelines, and I didn't really know anybody else eating low carb at that time. So that was my personal journey, but my professional journey was much different. I studied osteoporosis, and omega-3 fatty acids and inflammation, really in terms of bones. So my professional life was different than my personal life, but I always was low carb for a very long time. And then when I decided to start my low carb clinical practice, that is when I really started getting into the keto space and purely only doing now ketogenic consulting. And yes, there are some differences. I mean, in terms of weight loss, I didn't lose any weight going from low carb to keto because I was already lean from a low carb lifestyle. But the ketogenic lifestyle just offers so many other benefits, especially for people who are not already metabolically healthy. And the goal of my consulting program is to get fat adapted and to become metabolically flexible. So I offer a 6-week program and I hold people's hands through that program. We initiate a ketogenic lifestyle. They become keto adapted. And then you're on your journey to fat adaptation. And I explain that to people and I understand. I always say we're not on a diet. Basically, your fat cells are in a training program is how I kind of explain it. And we're trying to teach them, if weight loss is a goal, to open up those fat cells and contribute all those 80 to 100,000 calories that are stored in there. And if you don't do it in a step-by-step manner in the proper way, we never have access to that. So that is why I love the ketogenic lifestyle. There's so many other benefits beyond that of weight loss, which most people come to me. And then when I share my presentations and I have 50 other things listed as to why we want to live this lifestyle, then I really share that and people understand that. And I talk about if weight loss is a goal and you've hit your weight loss goals, you can make a choice. You can stay on a ketogenic lifestyle, or you can go back to or you could do a low carb lifestyle, but you can't go back to a high carbohydrate lifestyle, or you'll lose all the benefits that you worked so hard to achieve. For me, I live a ketogenic lifestyle. I don't do it for weight loss. I do it for the 50 other benefits, neurological and inflammation and cancer prevention and all those other benefits that come along with the lifestyle.
Yeah. Do you think you have to be keto to become fat adapted? Do you think you have to really dip that,
I do.
I guess strict? Yeah.
I do. And I think it's my program is about 6 weeks. And I usually on average at the 5-week mark is when I see fat adaptation happen.
Yeah. 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 And what would be some of the signs that you would know that you would be fat adapted? Is it only through measuring ketones, or do you have sort of other measures that you use?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main way that I see that my clients are keto adapted is by a reduction in appetite.
Yeah.
Right. When I can see, because they report to me every day, they report their macros to me. They use an app, they take a screenshot and they send it to me. So I watch the progression over the 6 weeks. And when I see calories naturally come down, and then I text them and I say, well, are you not hungry? And they say no. That is a clear sign that their fat cells are now opening up and contributing to that energy. So that really is that first sign of fat adaptation.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, isn't it? And I've personally experienced it myself, and it's one of those things you say to people, you just have to feel the difference. It's very hard to explain. I mean, we can talk to a blue in the face, but when you've experienced it, it's kind of like, yeah, I'll obviously never go back.
Right.
But can we talk a bit more about those other benefits that you've touched on? So, what for you say you personally stay keto because of those other benefits. So yeah, what are some of those?
Right. Just in diabetes prevention and cardiovascular disease prevention, a lot of the research is now showing with cancer prevention. And really those neurological benefits are so important to me. The keto board exam really went into detail about all of this. And I share all that information. I share all the scientific research with my clients, because I say, not only is it important for you to understand this, but you're going to be defending yourself against a lot of family and friends and even your physicians. You have to be armed and empowered with this information so you feel good about this decision, because a lot of people may knock you down. So I always say the reason I personally do it is these neurological benefits, the mental clarity, the reduction in inflammation, the energy level. I mean, there's so many reasons why I choose to live this lifestyle. And once I get my clients kind of to that point, nobody ever wants to go back. They say, now I get it. I feel so great. And until you are keto adapted and you are fat adapted, nobody really understands.
Yeah, that's so true. So how did it look for you when you did this 20 years ago? What do you remember what that was like, kind of stepping out against the standard?
I didn't feel like I was stepping out really against anybody. It was just the way that I chose to eat. And that's why transferring over to keto wasn't really a big deal for me. I think maybe I would eat some sweet potatoes, or I would have eaten some more kind of paleo vegetables as low carb. So it really wasn't a big change. Keto, just because of the what people think about keto and heard about keto, that's more of a struggle in today's society versus just not eating carbs. I mean, I would eat lentils. So I was lower carb. So it didn't change my life a lot. But still, I always tell my clients, I have not walked into a restaurant and ordered off of the menu in 20 years. So it still does take courage to withstand kind of what the mainstream eats and social activities. And I do talk to my clients a lot. Yeah, I have to give up some social activities because of my lifestyle. And that's just a choice that I make, because I want to live a very healthy lifestyle. So I can't go out and party. I can't go out and drink. I can't go to bars and drink 5 glasses of wine or do tequila shots. I choose not to do that, because I know what that does to my body, and I just don't want to go there. So I do have to be obviously prepared and organized if I am going to be leaving my house. If I am going to be going to dinner parties or celebrations, I always have to be in control of, what I eat. And if there is nothing for me, then I know I have to eat before, and that's something that I can do. But always thinking ahead, always being prepared with this lifestyle, and feeling good about your decision, and not letting other people make you feel bad or try to ruin the program. And I talk to my clients a lot. This is not a diet. This is a metabolic process. Your body doesn't want to go back and forth between glycolysis and ketogenesis. You're in a training program, and you have to stick to the training program. And I always say your friends and your family members aren't going to understand that. And they're not going to understand, oh, you can't have a bite of cake. You just really can't right now. So explaining that and really educating them on the biochemistry and what's going on with our bodies is really empowering. And it really appears to make a big difference in terms of the success of my clients.
It's amazing. And I think too, like anything, it gets easier. Like it's always going to be uncomfortable at first. I mean, that's
Right.
just natural. We don't, that's one of the things I help my clients with, is just sort of, not fearing it. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but so what? We will get better at it. We're going to see more. And it is just, if we want something new, we have to do something different. So
Right.
yeah, it is, but the fact that what I love about what you've shared is that even after 20 years, I mean, there's just choices that you need to make, but it's always bringing it back to, well, what's best for me? What are the choices for me? And you can't control what anybody else thinks. They have to make their own choices.
Right.
But, just because they choose something different doesn't, that's no reflection on us.
Right. And I really do a lot of confidence building with my clients, and giving them this confidence and giving them this empowerment and giving them the education so they can really, really understand what is going on with their bodies and why we're doing what we're doing. And that is really, really important.
Yeah. So how would you do that? How does that look when you do that with your clients?
So I do usually 2 education sessions, and I go through, I mean, these presentations have been modified and modified, and I think they will never be complete. As I learn more information, I will make changes, and I even learn from all my clients. So the education process is very deep. I show pictures, I explain what happens when you eat a carbohydrate. I show how the breaks down to glucose, and then it gets stored in the liver, and then it gets stored in the muscles, and what happens when we are resistant to insulin. I have pictures, a lot of images, and you really need to understand what is going on. I show the pie chart of the most recent statistics of poor metabolic health. Around 88% of Americans have poor metabolic health. So I show that, and I say, you're not in the minority. This is the state of not only America, but of the world. And in order to fix this damage that we've done, it doesn't take that long, but you got to stay strong. You got to give me 6 weeks. After the 6 weeks, we can talk about what that's going to look like after. But I always frame it in that way. And it's only 6 weeks. It's really not that long period of time. I also have office hours every week. So every Friday, people come to, I'm on for an hour. I have a topic of the week that I send out a presentation so they can watch it on their own time. And then we come together as a group, whoever can make it. We have discussions, whether it's sleep or stress or exercise or intermittent fasting. So every week is a different theme: ketones, glucose, continuous glucose monitors. So my clients I educate them so much that they become experts in the field. And that's really, really important. And I also do an exercise session. So Tuesday mornings, we come together as a group, and I do a resistance, high intensity training session also with my clients. So I see them a lot. There's a lot of interaction. They can text me anytime. I send out, body composition forms for them to send back to me every week, so I can track everything, and they report ketones to me. So it really is hand-holding for that six week period of time. And that's what I feel is needed to get everybody fat adapted. It's not a one size fits all approach. It's individualized. And I only take a few clients a month because of that, because I really have to give everybody that personalized attention.
It sounds amazing. I want to join. Do you take Aussies?
Yes, I've had a couple clients in New Zealand, actually, one in Australia.
Oh, close.
So I'm used to this
Uh,
kind of time change where I had to see them late.
so what time is it there for you? Sorry, I know
It's 6, almost 7 p.m.
okay, evening. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's always some sort of overlap. I usually find you can find some sort of time that is
Right.
suitable, that not in
Yeah,
the middle of the night, but
I have clients all over the world, so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
always
Oh, so
either a
then
morning or a night.
that's good to know. So obviously you can take people from anywhere, because this podcast, I mean, I'm in Australia, but I know there's listeners listening everywhere. So that's fantastic. What you do sounds amazing. I really would love to talk to you about what a behavioral nutritionist
Mhm,
looks like, and
mhm.
how that has evolved for you, what you've seen around that in your time as well.
Right. So when I was getting my master's degree in nutritional biochemistry, I said, okay, now I know everything there is really to know about nutrition in the body and macronutrients and micronutrients. And that's when I learned about insulin and really became very interested in how carbohydrates affect insulin. And then I thought, but how do we create a behavior change? That is the
Mhm.
hardest thing. You can tell someone what they need to eat, what they shouldn't eat. Don't eat processed foods, don't eat sugar, but does that really translate into their behavior? So there's a program at Columbia University. It's the only one in the country that I'm aware of that has a program in behavioral nutrition, which is really the marriage of psychology and nutrition. So
Mhm.
we learn about, we use different psychosocial frameworks, such as the social cognitive theory or the stages of change or something called a health belief model. And all these different theories and models have what are called motivating factors or determinants of behavior built into these models. So all of these models have tested their theories, usually on exercise or alcohol or smoking cessation, and also more recently on dietary behavior change. So I take all of this information that I learned and incorporate this knowledge to help my clients kind of progress to either down a stages of change. So they come to me usually in contemplation. How do I get them from contemplation to preparation? How do I prepare them for action? So I get to know my clients really well. I have a very detailed intake form. So even before I first see them, I ask kind of these behavioral questions. So I know them pretty well even before I see them face to face. So I already know in my mind what kind of behavioral factors are going to be important in the journey for them. So that's
Mhm.
how I kind of incorporate this behavioral nutrition. And so it really is bringing in the psychology of eating and bringing it to this world of just nutrition.
Mm. It's fascinating, because that's exactly what I've seen as well, that, it rarely is it the knowledge. Most of my clients will sit in front of me and they're like, "Oh, I've watched everything on Diet Doctor. I've listened to every
Mhm.
podcast. I've read every book. But I don't know why I can't stop eating a packet of biscuits at night. Or I don't know why when I'm feeling stressed, I reach for ice cream. I don't know why I can't make it work for me. Why? And it's that led me, down this path of finding something similar, which was an explanation of sort of how we work as human beings. And I did what
Mhm.
you've done, and I've incorporated that into, how to help people overcome a lot of these hurdles that we see come up when we want to make, it a lifestyle. And fascinating stuff, because I think for a lot of it's missed a lot of the time,
Yeah.
because people don't understand it, or it looks a little harder. It's not so concrete. It's not a checklist. It's a little bit it's different, isn't it?
Right, right.
um but it's so powerful when
Mhm.
people do, sort of look in this area and see the magic behind, really healing with all of that as well.
Right.
So how how much is that incorporated into your work still, or have you seen other things that have, changed your perspective a little bit, or?
Right. So initially, I thought I'm going to be doing so much behavioral training, and how am I going to organize all this? Because here's all this education, and how am I going to actually apply it to my clients? So I use a concept now there was a publication of a book. First, it was called The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. And he used this analogy about using a rider and an elephant. This is the first time I've talked about this ever on a podcast. So this is kind of my secret in terms of how I guide my clients. My clients don't even know that there's a rider and an elephant. You can see my elephant behind me in the back. It always reminds me of this elephant. And it really is that the rider is our rational mind, and the elephant is our emotional mind. And if the rider and the elephant are not on the same path together, you could never be successful. And the rider is, because it's our rational mind, we have to direct the rider. But if the emotional mind, which is the elephant, which is much bigger than the rider, if the emotional mind is not on board, there's no way that elephant is going to go down the path. As big as the rider is, the elephant, the emotional part, will always override the rational part. So that is how I look at all my clients. Some of them I need to direct the rider. They need education. That's where kind of the knowledge comes in, is directing the rider. But you can't just only direct the rider. So just purely educating someone is never going to work. They need a clear-cut path. They need steps. They like checklists. And then you have to motivate the elephant. And that's where a lot of these concepts from behavioral nutrition come into play. How am I going to motivate them? And that's when I use these models and these theories. For example, something called the health belief model. It really focuses on looking at the perceived risks of staying where you currently are and not making a dietary change, and then looking at the perceived benefits of making the change. So in some people, I have to say, what are these risks? You have 4 of the 5 components of metabolic syndrome. You have your insulin resistant, your triglycerides are through the roof, you have impaired glucose tolerance, your waist circumference is big. Like you can't live like this forever and maintain a high quality of life. So you have to really point out in a nice way, these are the perceived risks. This is what's going to happen down the road if you don't make a change. And then look at all these benefits on the other side. So I choose which models and which behavioral factors that I need to address depending on where that client is. Some need more direction. The rider needs more direction, and the emotional part or the elephant needs more direction. And I work together with both of them. Usually they both need some direction.
Yeah, fantastic. It's so fascinating. So how do you see things when they become fat adapted? Like, I mean, we did talk at the start before we started recording about the magic of ketones. I mean, I'd love you to share what you've seen around that.
Right. So I started to say that I thought I was going to be doing a lot of behavioral training, but ketones are magical. And I always tell all my clients, like, when you become keto adapted, when your body is being fueled off of this clean energy source, it does some of my job for me. Because of the effects on the brain, it helps me along. I don't have to do so much behavior with most people because ketones really help me out in terms of appetite suppression, in terms of the way that they just feel, and the mental clarity, and the no more brain fog. So a lot of that is done for me. We know that ketones suppress appetite, so it's easier to lose weight with ketones. It's easier to not overeat because you have ketones in your body, and that's suppressing your appetite. So ketones really, I always say, are so incredibly magical. I couldn't imagine my life without them. And everybody says, how are you so happy in the pandemic? I said, it must be the ketones. If I didn't have these, I wouldn't be as happy.
That's funny. So do you ever recommend exogenous ketones, or are you talking about just all, what our body's going to make?
I only recommend exogenous ketones for my neurological cases that come to me. So Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, because they needed ketones yesterday. They don't have time. They don't even have 4 to 7 days to develop their own ketones. And usually they're older adults. So it's harder, and it's a little bit slower to teach them, the keto lifestyle, to teach them the macros. So for them, I will suggest exogenous ketones. but I don't for everybody else, because exogenous ketones, right? They only stay in your system for a few hours, and they also prevent the production of endogenous ketones, which are the ketones that we make inside our bodies. So we don't want to be preventing the exogenous, the endogenous ketones from being produced. So I will introduce that initially, until for some of my older clients, until I can teach them the lifestyle, and then they can get the benefits from creating their own ketones.
Yeah. So how do you see overall, I know this is going to be very individualistic, but how do you see overall that changes? Because I mean, I certainly in the beginning, when our body makes that switch, it's doing that adaptation. Most people generally sort of have a higher level of ketones, but then what we can see is that drop off a little bit. Is that something you've seen? And if so, can you explain why that might be happening?
Yes, definitely. As your body becomes keto adapted and fat adapted, and it expects that we are going to be fueled from our ketones, either from eating fat or from our own fat, then your body will only really need to produce the ketones that it needs. So it becomes very, very efficient. Now, my ketones are rarely over 1. I've been on and off ketosis for years. So a lot of my clients go, oh no, how do I get my ketones up? Higher ketones doesn't translate into more rapid weight loss. There are so many different factors associated with ketones. And I always tell my clients, I will worry about the ketone numbers. You just listen to me and do what you need to do. If I have an issue with your ketones, then I will let you know. But yes, they will drop off. That is normal, because the body becomes so efficient, and it's only going to produce the ketones that it needs, and it knows how to do that. So as I said, very rarely am I over 1. I haven't been over 1.5 in a very long time.
How often would you test, just out of
For
curiosity?
me, oh, every couple of weeks. I have a
Yeah.
CGM on. I love my CGM.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to live without it. After the 2 weeks is over, I get really upset, and then I have to go get another one. So I still like to test foods and see how I react to certain foods, especially for my clients. Sometimes I'll get the latest and greatest keto treat. I don't do a lot of keto sweets, but I do like to test and see how my own body reacts to some of these sweeteners, the monk fruit or the stevia or the erythritol, just for my own knowledge. And so I can share that with my clients also. Monk fruit doesn't increase my glucose, but stevia does. And so I have to share all these experiences. And I also talk to my clients about this lifestyle is always evolving. It's experimentation, it's trial and error. It keeps it exciting. It keeps you on your toes. You're never just going to do the same thing for the rest of your life. I change it up all the time, and I always experiment on myself, and that makes it fun. And then I know what I'm comfortable doing and what I'm not comfortable doing. I had berries today. My glucose went to 105. Am I comfortable with that? Not really. Does that mean I'm never going to have berries again? No, but now I'm mindful, and I know that berries are going to put me a little bit higher. So that's just really good knowledge to have.
It is good knowledge to have, and it is such a great way to look at it, because that's exactly how I see. I resonate with that so much. It is that we will keep learning. We never know everything. There's always more to see. Is like my mantra. People listening that know me, it's like, oh yeah, that's Tracey's tagline. There's always more to see, and I just think when we sit in that, it's just always exciting. It's always evolving. But then we can get into a position where I'd love your perspective on, because I think it doesn't matter whether we're talking about nutrition or we're talking about anything. We will find someone to basically swear black and blue that, this is the right way. And then someone will say, no, 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 this is the right way. So how do you, in your position, kind of deal with, alternate views? How do you work out what works for you?
Right. So when people initially come to me, I mean, they know that I only do keto, and I will only really do keto. So I make a decision up front whether I think the lifestyle is right for them. If I do not think the lifestyle is right for them, then I won't take them on as clients. And I discuss this with them up front. What does this entail? What does this commitment entail? And some people are ready for it, and some people are not.
Right.
So really all I will do is a ketogenic lifestyle. And as I said, the goal of my program is not to lose weight. Of course you lose weight while you're getting fat adapted, because that's the whole, it's a bonus. It's a bonus to getting your metabolisms healthy, right? If you're insulin resistant or you have poor metabolic health, your metabolism is broken, right? So the whole goal of my program is to get insulin sensitive, to fix the metabolism, to get fat adapted. So that is what I explain to people. When people contact me, I have a very detailed YouTube video I send them so they know exactly what to expect. Nobody can travel during my program, so that gets rid of a lot of people.
Yeah. Although during COVID, it was probably quite good.
During COVID, I was swamped. I had 20 clients sometimes at one time during COVID, and I finally says, I can't do that. I mean, I didn't leave my house, so I had time for it, right? But now that life is kind of opening up, I don't have time for that anymore. And it became very, very difficult for me to keep I don't write everything down about people. I know in my mind, I know when someone sends me their weight, I remember what their weight was a week ago. So I don't have to go back and check. But when you have 20 clients going on, you have to go back. Wait, what was their last weight? Wait, what was their last ketones? What was their waist circumference? So it's really good.
And then, so how do you help people, I guess, navigate that? I think, as you said, you went to the Low Carb USA conference, and, people, experts in the field saying, yes, we do this, and no, we should do that. I just think it's such a thing I see, in every day, everyone gets a little confused. Nutrition is what we're talking about, but it can be anything. How do we work out who's right?
Right. So I just listened to 20 speakers at the most recent Low Carb USA conference, and everybody's conflicting. Not everybody's on the same page, and I don't agree with everybody, but I do pick out things that I'm like, wow, that's working for somebody, or wow, that's really an interesting concept. And then I look at that further, and then I think, wow, that I like that approach. I'm going to incorporate that into my practice. And that's kind of how it evolves. But my practice evolves with every new client. I learn something new from every client, because not everybody's always going to be the same. I think I've had 250 clients since my practice opened about 2 years ago. With every client, I learn something new, and I can help the next client with that, because then I become knowledgeable about the obstacles or the struggles with the lifestyle change.
I think that's fantastic. And I think that's it. We don't have to fear that. I think that's always been the case. That, people are going to see things from their perspective, from their experience. And we are in such a good position that we can sit back and contemplate and look and consider and know that we don't know everything, right? Because our brain kind of might trick us like that sometimes. But when we, are open to just, okay, I'm going to consider that. I'll put that over there. I'll give it a go. I'll give it a try. You might end up taking it. It might work for some people, but it might not work for others. And, I love that. And I don't think we have to fear it. I think there's so much. Yeah.
And I always try things on myself before I suggest them for clients. So if I'm going to do a higher protein, the protein is kind of the big thing right now when it's talking about all this protein. So I started loading up on protein. Did it work for me? Didn't work for me, but I can share my experiences. If I were to go carnivore, it would be very difficult for me to do carnivore. So I can share my experiences with my clients. And if they think they could do carnivore, then I can recommend them to somebody who's more an expert in the carnivore lifestyle. But I always am trying things with myself. That's why I have the CGM. That's why I'm testing ketones. That's why I test all these keto treats and sweets that I tell my clients not to eat, because I want to share, what happens with me and why we really can't have them. So it's always evolving. And I love listening to podcasts. I mean, in all of my extra time, I'm listening to podcasts. If I can take one little thing from each one and go, well, I don't believe that, or wow, that's a really great way that somebody explained that, I'm going to explain that way to my clients. So I love listening to other experts in the field. And especially I've been in the low carb space, in the keto space only for a few years. So there's been people who've been in the space for a lot longer than me. I think I'm caught up in terms of the education and the knowledge, but in terms of working with clients or sharing experiences, I'm like a sponge when I'm listening to all those podcasts. The more information, the better.
Yeah, I love it. So can I touch on that? You mentioned you tried the carnivore and it didn't work for you. It's definitely the hot thing going around at the moment. Well, certainly increasing protein. So what was your experience? Are you able to share that?
Yeah. So I just feel unbalanced myself without vegetables.
Yeah.
It's something I look forward to. It's something that works for my body. I can't really do high protein. I didn't feel good. But I'm sure that with time, I would adjust. It was just not really
Mm.
something that I was interested in. I have a family. My children are low carb, so I have to make vegetables for them anyway. And I felt, I did it for a week and I'm like, God, I just really miss my veggies and I feel
Yeah.
so balanced, and my stomach didn't feel fabulous during that time. But I tried it, and I'm
Mm.
sure for some people it works. And maybe I didn't give it a long enough time. Organ meats are something that are very difficult for me as well. And I know that if I was going to live a carnivore lifestyle, that I would have to get the nutrients from some of the organ meats. So for me, it didn't work, but for a lot of people, they love the carnivore lifestyle, and I think that's fine. I also need a
Mm.
little bit of fruit once in a while, so that it would have been a very difficult life for me, especially with my children. And I know there's a lot of keto carnivore experts that raise their children carnivore. I'm just not quite at that extreme. My approach is a little bit more balanced, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and that's it. You've made it work for you. You've tried it. I think just having that curiosity to try it is a good thing for everybody.
Mhm.
If you're curious, give it a go. I mean, it's not going to, a week here or there to try something. It's just information. It's just going to tell you a little bit more. And I think like I did the carnivore last year for 6 months because was diagnosed with Hashimoto's,
Mm.
and I've found personally that it has worked for me, but wouldn't say I'm all carnivore now. I think, I don't miss veggies because I never liked them. It was kind
Mm.
of one of those things that,
Mhm.
I have to eat them. I've got to find a way to love
Mhm.
them. And then when I kind of learned, oh, they're kind of optional, I was like, oh,
Mm.
great. But, berries are different. See, I do love berries, and I will still have, some berries and cream and all that when I feel like it. And I think it's just that I've worked for me, and that's what I want my clients and people to see, that you can find out what works for you, but it takes
Right.
experimenting, and don't be
Right.
afraid to experiment.
That's what I always say. I'm always experimenting. I'm always telling my clients, they want me to say whether something's going to work or not. And I said, it's different for everybody. Let's
Yep.
experiment. Let's try it. Let's
Mm.
say if you want a glass of wine, let's do it. Let's see if it throws you out of ketosis. If it doesn't, you're good to go. If it throws you out, you're going to have to reconsider. So definitely always evolving, always trying different things. That's what keeps the lifestyle exciting. But it has to work for you, because this is a lifestyle and this is a
Mhm.
long-term change. And that's what I always teach my clients. Let's make this a lifestyle. Let's take the lifestyle you're living. Let's put a couple tweaks on it, because this is really a forever. This is not a quick fix. This is not a diet. You have to embrace this lifestyle. You have to become an advocate for this lifestyle to friends and families, to family members. And I have most of my clients come based on recommendations. So they see their
Mm.
friend or their family member or their spouse. So most of my clients now are recommended from former or current clients, because they see the change in their lifestyle.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think that's exactly, it's just a great way to see it. That's been fabulous. It's been fabulous. I've got a couple more questions before I
Okay.
let you go, if that's all
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Can you share, if you're comfortable in sharing, like your day on a plate on average, just sort of I know, people sort of like to grab what other people do and wear that, but I like to just sort of put it out there. People, someone like yourself that has huge amount of knowledge and is actually qualified to talk about food, what would you eat in a day on average?
So on an average day, I practice intermittent fasting. So usually it's going to be a 16-hour fast. I usually do a pretty early dinner. We just do dinner early as a family. A lot of reasons because of that, sticking with our biological clock. So I really like to be done by 6. And, as we talked about it interfering with social activities, that interferes with social activities. Will I maybe deviate from that once in a while? Yes, once in a while. But for the most part, my body, runs very efficiently. And so I'll be done with dinner by 6. I usually will fast till about 10. At 10 o'clock, I will, and I do have my little intermittent fasting coffee early in the morning, around 6 o'clock, just black coffee with a little tiny bit of heavy cream. And then I don't quite like to eat at that 16-hour mark, but for me, and I'm not in a place that I need weight loss, I really need to stop that weight loss process. So I will have a bulletproof coffee at that time. That's my favorite. For those of you who want to lose weight, please, be careful with bulletproof coffee. For most of us, we don't want to be drinking our fat. For me, when I do not do bulletproof coffee at that 16-hour mark, and I go 18 or 20-hour fast, I do lose too much weight. So I figured out a way for my body for it to work with I'm not ready to eat food at that time, so I will have a bulletproof coffee. And then usually my first meal of the day is lunch, and it's some way, shape, or form with eggs. I don't feel like my day is normal unless I've eaten eggs for the day. So I try to vary it up. I'll have eggs with some smoked salmon. I'll have eggs with some salsa. I'll have eggs with avocado. I'll have eggs with a little cheese. Sometimes I'll make the chaffles with the egg and the cheese in my waffle maker, so I feel like I'm eating a waffle. I'll put some cinnamon on there. I'll try to vary it up, but always it's going to be eggs in some way. And then my dinner will always be a protein and some kind of vegetable, and that's basically what it is. I try to only really eat food twice a day, like the brunch or the lunch and the dinner. But I always have a snack available if I need it. On days where I exercise, I am more hungry. So I do really have a snack planned, but I always ask myself, it's 3 o'clock. Okay, is it snack time? Am I hungry? If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. But I do have something available in case I am hungry at that time, whether it's berries or whether it's a couple macadamia nuts or whether it's a piece of string cheese or whatever that is. But for the most part, my goal will always be just to eat twice a day and 2 meals. And they have to be pretty satiating. If you're just eating the 2 meals, I'm going to do 4 eggs and half of an avocado because I need it to tide me over for 5 or 6 or 7 hours.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad you said that because it's definitely important, isn't it, when we are eating this way and wanting to limit snacking and, increase our body's ability to go longer in between food. I mean, we do have to eat enough. We're so, we're so used to how much, what's the size, 1 egg and 1 bit. It's like, well, how long is that going to take you before you're hungry again? I mean, I'm the same. If I have eggs, I have 4 as well. And sometimes people are like, what, 4 eggs? I'm like, yes, that's what I need to fill me up. And yes, and I'll have very similar to you. My first meal sounds very, very similar to you. Not so much the avocado, only because I don't like it. Not that I have a problem with it, but I'll include some salmon or something as well. And it just fills you up, and hunger rarely is an issue then until dinner time.
Right. And it takes a while to figure out what satiates you, right? I mean, feeling satiated is different on a high carb lifestyle versus a low carb lifestyle, right? Totally. So, and I do a lot of that mindfulness with my clients in terms of we don't want to overstuff ourselves. You don't really get that overstuffed feeling on a ketogenic lifestyle. It's more of I'm satisfied, I'm satiated, and I'm not hungry anymore. And that's really the place that we want to be. And then I have a young child I have an 11-year-old who's keto. So I do some diet doctor recipes, and I do some of the casseroles and experiment a little bit more so she can get more flavors. For me, I'm okay with just a piece of grilled salmon and a side of cream spinach. I'm happy with that. But for her, I like to vary it up more, and I will make her some cookies once in a while, and I will create a lifestyle, more of a kid-friendly keto lifestyle for her. But for me, I'm a creature of habit, and I could basically, just have my eggs in the morning and then rotate my protein and my veggies at night, and I'm happy.
Yes, me too. And people are like, "Oh, don't you get bored?" I'm like, "Nah." No. It's so easy. I just don't spend any time thinking too much about it. It's just it's easy, and I can spend time thinking about other stuff rather than food. It's just,
and you know how you feel, and you know what to expect, and you're not gonna feel bloated, and you know you're not going to feel
Mhm.
so heavy, and you know you're not going to be tired. So
Yeah.
it is good to be a little more exploratory with the lifestyle if you're someone who needs that. I just
Mm.
don't really need it. When I go out to dinner, I might have a little bit more variety than I would at home. I tell my clients more clean meals more days of the week than not. Clean
Yeah.
meaning a piece of fish and a little bit of vegetable, a grilled chicken breast and some asparagus. A couple days of the week, go ahead and make some of those keto recipes that are going to be higher in fat, or go out to a restaurant. But more days of the week need to be clean and at home.
Yeah, it's great advice. It's great advice. Well, the last question I love to ask my guests is, who are you currently learning from? Who are the people that are, you know, inspiring
Gosh,
you?
I'm really into Ben Bickman right now. I
Oh,
am.
me too.
His podcast and his little Instagram tidbits. I really, every time I see him come up, I can't wait to listen to him. I mean, I'm really into insulin resistance. I think that is the biggest problem of, almost every single person on this earth. And I'm a sponge when he talks about his insulin resistance. So that's really where I'm at in terms of my education, is learning as much as I can about insulin resistance. And so I have a little, when I do my presentation, I have a little figure of our risk factors for insulin resistance, and the risk factors are growing. Every time I listen to Ben Bickman, I add another, puberty here, and then pregnancy here, and now statins here. So there really is a lot of great information, but insulin resistance is really where I'm educating myself right now.
Yeah, I love it. I love Ben too. And he's just such a nice person.
Mm-hmm,
He
mm-hmm.
just, he's so generous with himself and his information. Did you see the one he did a couple of days ago on stress and visceral fat versus subcutaneous?
No, I didn't. Oh, I
Oh,
missed that. Uh-oh.
yeah.
I better go
I
back
will,
and do that, because I talk a lot about stress and
yep.
stress reduction, and sleep is you're right. It's a huge part of metabolic health. And I always tell my
Absolutely.
clients, you can work your butt off trying to create your perfect macros. And if you're not sleeping and you're stressed every day, you're not going to get to your goals. So that is a
Mhm,
big part of my program. And I have
mhm.
everybody wearing some kind of monitor. This is my Aura ring. So it tracks
Ooh,
my sleep at night. So I can, last night I didn't sleep very well. I knew I didn't sleep well. And when I went to go download the information in my phone, I'm like, oh gosh, I know it's going to be a nightmare. I know that I didn't sleep well. But then it's just, tonight I'm going to prepare a little differently for sleep, because I know I didn't sleep well last night. So, and then this tracks my activity too. So if I haven't hit my 10,000 steps, and I'll take my dog for an extra walk, I'm like, I really need to do that. So we have these kind of self-monitoring motivators that are really, really important also on this lifestyle, things to keep you in check. Even though I've been living this lifestyle for a long time, I still
mm.
self-monitor. I still weigh. I still test ketones. I still test glucose. I still have my activity tracker, making sure I get my steps up, because this is my lifestyle. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
another thing that's really important, is to self-monitor.
And I think, the perspective shifts on that. I used to do that too, but it affected me. I put my success or failure against that,
Mm,
and a lot of that times that sort of built into my sense of self-worth as well. And that's something I think we see. The
yeah.
difference is what you're talking about is it's fun, it's information. It's
Mhm.
not telling you whether you're a good human being or not, or whether
Right.
you're,
Oh, let
yeah.
me tell you, I've taken this ring off and thrown it across the room when I'm up at when I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm so mad because I don't want to see the results in the morning. So it's a love-hate relationship, right? But it's still, for
I
me,
love
is
it.
motivating. Yeah, and it doesn't determine if I'm a good or a bad person, but as we progress on this lifestyle, it is important to self-monitor. It is important to weigh. It is important to get these facts, because you can catch yourself and get right back on track a lot quicker. I have clients that leave me, and then 3 months later they'll text me, "Oh my God, I gained 15 pounds." I said, "Well, have you been testing ketones? Have you been weighing?" "No, I haven't." But so if they saw a creep of 3 or 4 pounds, then they could have fixed that right away. But if you
They'd
wait and wait
know.
and
Yeah.
wait, then sometimes you're so far out of the lifestyle that it's hard to reel yourself back in. So and self-monitoring is a big part of behavioral nutrition as well. And that's why I have people that buy scales where it shows their body fat, it shows their visceral fat. I have people doing their waist circumference because the number on the scale might not be changing, but there's body recomposition going on. So I have all these other indicators and these motivators because people really focus on that one number on the scale. It's not always going to move, right? But your waist circumference, it's not going to go up, right? So it's always going to go in if you're doing it correctly. Whereas if you went out to a restaurant last night and you ate more salt or foods that your body wasn't used to, then the weight's going to be up a little bit the next day, and then you're going to be upset. So there's so many different self-monitoring ways, techniques that we can use with the ketogenic lifestyle. And there is no other lifestyle where we can monitor these, our ketones or our glucose and kind of understand. So we're lucky in that way that there's so much more self-monitoring that can occur on a ketogenic lifestyle.
And just more and more keeps coming out too. It's great. I mean, the CGMs, it's just fabulous.
I have a love-hate relationship with my CGM too.
Well, don't rip it out though.
Sometimes I'll delete the app. I don't want to see it. I went to Los Angeles, I don't know, a month ago, and it was just a really stressful weekend for my children and I. And my glucose was above 100 the entire time, and I didn't eat one carbohydrate. So it just I shared this experience with my clients. Like stress will do that to you. Stress is going to shoot up your glucose. It's going to shoot up your insulin. It's this fight or flight response. So it's not just the carbohydrates, and learning and evolving with this lifestyle is really great. But yeah, I do have love-hate relationships with a lot of these things, but you just have to say, okay, you chalk it up to that and you just kind of move on. But it is a great learning experience. And the more I can learn and share with everybody, I'm happy to be used as the guinea pig for a lot of these fun gadgets now.
Yeah, that's funny because when I did the CGM, I must say I really want to do it again, but I did it last year and I decided to do a few days where I'd go back to eating the standard diet I used to eat before. And I was in the supermarket in the cereal aisle, and my blood glucose started going up because I was stressed about having to buy stuff I hadn't bought for years, and I'm like, oh no, it's but fascinating. Again, that's the power of our mind too.
Right, and and when I carb cycle, which I do carb cycle. I definitely wear a CGM when I carb cycle to see how my body reacts to those carbohydrates.
Fascinating. Well, it's been such a pleasure to meet you and chat to you. Thank you.
It's been really fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, such a pleasure. I will have all your information below, obviously, so people can find you and reach out to you. But thank you for being open and sharing so much great knowledge and wisdom with us all today.
Sure. Thank you.